spirituality and the real aspect of the immune system of the soul. And today is part 2, and I'm sure you will benefit greatly. Before I hand you over to Sister Denise, I will just share a little bit about a profile. Denise Lawrence has been a student and teacher at the Brahmakumari's World Spiritual University for the past 48 years. So you can see the wealth of experiences. She established and coordinated BK centers in Germany, Canada, USA during the 1970s and 80s. She is a writer and broadcaster and coordinated the Overseas Communications Center at Godlywood Studio at the Brahmakumari's headquarters in Mount Abu from 2010 to 2020. From 2000 to 2007, she prepared a diploma course in education in values and spirituality, which is now being taught at several universities in India and Asia. Her novel, Siamachi, I hope it's the right pronunciation.
It's Siamachi.
Siamachi.
Yeah, okay. It's a Greek
Siamachi. Fighting with Your Shadow was published in India in 2017 and translated into Germany and published in 2020. She is a prolific internet presence and offers classes internationally through YouTube, Zoom, blog, podcast. She lives in Germany and travels widely, offering seminars, lectures, retreats on subjects related to spirituality, meditation, the conversions of spiritual and psychological inner work. Can you see the wealth of experiences, my dear sister, as accumulated? And when you heard her on Wednesday, we were able to pick up deeply, not only it was, theory, but for me, I picked up such an experience, vibrations and power that came through. So once again, thank you, my sister. I hand over to you.
Well, thank you, Shirley, very much. And this matter of the immunity of the soul is really very interesting. What is in my mind today, especially about that, is that the soul has been damaged and badly impacted by just life. And so already there is material in the soul that has corrupted it, that has poisoned it, and made the soul sick. What is the sign of sickness of the soul is when you are unstable mentally, emotionally, and these are signs of trauma. And just living on in the day-to-day situations for many people is really traumatic. And so what people do, they develop coping mechanisms for handling their wounds, their internal wounds, which began in their childhood. And of course, when a person is in their childhood, they're very sensitive, they're very open. It's like a blank sheet of paper on which a world which is in many instances not very nice will scribble all over that soul and generally mess it up. And then people are also taught that that is correct. And so it creates confusion, moral confusion in the soul. And whatever goes in, that also comes out. And so a lot of the coping mechanisms that people have developed produce a kind of artificial personality where you will create a self, which is not your actual self, but you think it looks good. So you put that and you lay it over your wounds, your spiritual and psychological wounds, and then you perform like that. And that is called ego. And so this is really the problem. It is always said in spirituality that you should aim to be egoless, but then nobody really knows what ego is. And they generally think that ego is when you are walking roughshod over other people's feelings. This is one quite interesting definition of ego. Another one is ego, edging God out. And so you present yourself as, yes, I am the greatest thing there is, and everybody should love me and honor me. And what I need more than anything else is to be respected. And whatever I do is absolutely fine and justifiable. And all of this is sickness of the soul. So to achieve immunity in the soul, when the soul has already been affected, quite adversely affected by many things in life, this immunity, I think, can only really happen when you have healed the soul. And so healing the soul is quite a deep thing. And if you look at the idea of healing in terms of medical world, I think there are many different modes of medication and medicine. And the most famous ones are allopathy, which is the normal one. And then there's homeopathy and Ayurvedic medicine. And the normal allopathic medicine will say, okay, whatever is wrong with you, if it's broken bones, we can fix it. If you have blocked arteries, we can unblock them. And so the allopathy looks at the body only and sorts out whatever symptoms are there, looking at the human being as a mechanical object. So it doesn't really touch the soul at all. And then when you turn to Ayurveda and homeopathy, there they really do look at things in a more holistic way. And they say that, well, the problem that is manifesting in the physical body originates somewhere much deeper, and that is really the soul. So to heal the soul means what exactly? What is the problem with the soul? And the behavior of a person is an expression of the damage to the soul. And so you're looking at it in a little bit psychological way. Most people, they will close off the self. And in the meditation that we heard this morning from Dipti, she was saying, open your heart. And this is a very beautiful instruction, open your heart. But then if your heart is messed up, then you don't really want to open it, because then you have to see that it's messed up and you don't know what to do with that. So people would rather create an artificial heart and open that. And what happens is that the soul is what is doing everything, and the soul is what is experiencing everything. So when you encounter someone who opens themselves up, but they're opening a false heart, you will feel that this person isn't real. And so then you feel uncomfortable, because what the soul craves more than anything is realness or reality or truth. And we're surrounded by things which are fake now. Everybody's talking about fake news. And we do live in a world where everything is a show, and it is there to hide the reality. And I think that healing, which precedes immunity, begins with going deep into what is really the reality. And so in spiritual practice, there are two instructions. And one is think about yourself, make contact with yourself. And the second is make contact with the divine, make contact with God. Why?
So, Sister Denise, beautiful, beautiful, powerful sharing. I could identify with how when we close our heart and we're not real and we're not ourselves and expressing, yes, we can hide because we don't know how to really express ourselves. The one thing that you are sharing, how the more when there's wounds and more when we operate, I know on those wounds, it's like, again, so much of layers that are covering the original beauty of the being. That's what I take. And if you can share with us about the spiritual tools that will help us through the healing process so that we can be our real selves, we can be so sincere and honest and so clean, and so that others feel comfortable in our company, because I'm real, I'm sincere. Even if I have wounds, it's okay that I know I'm working on that, and it's okay. But I would appreciate more tools and the spiritual way of healing the self. Thank you.
Well, the thing is, spirituality is also called purification. And purification means cleaning. And so you're not going to clean anything which is already clean. You clean something which is not clean. And so this is the thing that is difficult for people, where you talked about honesty. Well, the thing about honesty is that you have to look inside and see what the wounds are, and see what the damage is, and see what the infections are, what the rust is. You have to really look inside and see, okay, I need to really understand what has happened. And because if you don't do that, you can't fix it. And fixing it is done through a process of resonance. And I think one of the problems that many people have is they believe that spirituality is to put a membrane that looks very nice over the top of all of the damage and say, I don't have any damage. And then you're not really progressing.
Yes.
And so, as I was mentioning, these two steps, first is you have to look at yourself. And when you look at yourself and do a rigorous self-inventory, this could be depressing. And this is why in spirituality it is also said that, look, your original condition before anything ever happened to you is you are fundamentally a pure, powerful, peaceful, loveful being of light. And you have been damaged by life. And so what you're doing in spirituality is gradually cleaning off all of the damage that has been done and arriving back at your original condition, which is absolutely beautiful, clean, pure, intact, undamaged, etc. And a lot of people don't really do it that way. I'm not sure why they don't do it that way, because it's a very good way. But I think it's because a lot of people prefer to be in denial. And this also happens when there's physical illnesses. You know, you may be told by your doctor, okay, you have a problem, you need to come in and we need to do some operations and things like that. And the person will say, well, no, I feel fine, I think I'll postpone it. And by the time things are really, really bad, when it's way too late, then, you know, the disease is very advanced. And
You think, sorry,
Go
just
ahead. Yeah.
you think postponing things is also because maybe there's fear, maybe there's we don't have the power to deal with it, or have that lack of self-respect?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with guidance. And, you know, if you're doing spiritual practice in an environment where people are very judgmental, you're not going to open up. And so this is something that needs to be addressed. Because if you say, you should be happy, you should be pure, you should be peaceful, you should not be upset, you know, this is a worldly approach to spirituality. This is the religions do that. And it is counterproductive, actually. And so in spiritual practice, very often people will bring along their baggage from what they were doing before they entered into spiritual practice, and then they'll contaminate the spiritual practice. It won't work. And then they say, oh, there's something wrong with the spiritual practice, it's not working. It works just fine, but you have to do it right. And you have to understand what you're doing. And so all of this really needs to be looked at clearly and closely. So the first thing is that the environment, the guidance environment needs to be non-judgmental. And so, because when you have people in a judgmental environment, there's no difference between that and the contaminated world, no difference at all. So a non-judgmental environment means you have to realize that everyone in the room has got very nice masks on. And a few people, their masks are falling off. And so the reality comes through, and then the other people will be judgmental towards them and make them feel like they are not very good and everybody else is fine. And that those fine people have immunity of the soul, but they don't. They just have good masks, which are tightly held on with good pieces of elastic. But circumstances or people who are very clear about these things can take off those masks quite fine. And then what do? You have no tools for dealing with your reality. And so the guidance is something that's very important. Then secondly, going back to this first step, you have to be comfortable enough in a good environment where you are, where you don't feel afraid to take off all your bandages, because the wounds are not very pretty. And so the doctors have to be very sensitive to the patients, and the doctors are no less sick than the patients. And so in a way, it's like people are all in it together. But what the tendency is, the doctors say, I'm fine, everybody else is not fine. And this is not honest, you see. And what you said earlier about honesty is really very, very important. Honest, real, and the reality of, okay, I have been damaged by life. Everybody's been damaged by life. And the process is one in which you help yourself, you help those around you to go deep inside and peel off the layers of damage and the bandages and arrive at this beautiful, pure self within, who has been corrupted, contaminated, damaged, hurt, etc. And the second step is really very important, and that is to come into resonance with the Supreme Being, because this is the true healing force. And so we call that meditation. Now, a lot of people don't really know how to do this, because you can't do it unless you go deep inside to yourself and make contact with yourself, having seen clearly what the damage is and not try to avoid it or pretend it isn't there. So this honesty is really key in the process. And then your heart, you can open your heart to God, to the divine, because God is not the God of the religions who is a punishing type. God is actually very kind, very beautiful, but people do not know God. And the one of the most damaging things that has happened to people is religion, because of this presentation of God as the punisher and the one who will only like you if you're perfect. And if there's anything wrong with you, then God will dislike you. And so religions have really prevented people from being easy with God, and they have caused people to try to protect themselves from God. So you've got to protect yourself from people, from life, from God. You're in trouble. And so we have to stop that. That is really making the illness worse and worse and worse. And you're not going to get any kind of immunity like that. And so this first step of going in a non-judgmental environment where you are told again and again, you have to be told because the inner voice tells you something different. You have to be told again and again, you're pure, peaceful, powerful, loving, beautiful being of light. You're a child of God, and God is the great healer, and you have nothing to fear. God is not the punisher that the religions have made him out to be. God is something very, very different. And God, you and God need to be in resonance with each other, because then God is able to heal you and cause all this damage to fall away and to melt, you see. And people have no idea about this. And this is very, very important to know. And, you know, a lot of people, when they come into spiritual practice, they mix up religious ideas with spiritual ideas and social ideas and preconceptions and prejudices. And then this mix is contaminated. And so it's very time consuming and difficult to get free from it. And it's again part of the process, because all these ideas are deeply embedded in the soul. So
Sister Denise, you know, I really want to say you made it so simple and yet so powerful. And I can see the practical example of your experience. The thought was because we're short of time, perhaps you think we can allow for a few questions from our participants, and then maybe if you finish off with taking us into that very beautiful going deep inside of ourselves and reminding us who we are, and that real connection with the divine. Because I think from today's sharing, the main ingredient, magical ingredient, is connecting with the self and the real self, and connecting with the divine. That's where the healing process starts. So that will be helpful, if that's okay.
Sure, definitely.
Yes. So I would like to invite our friends, whoever would like to unmute, if you have any questions or anything that you would like to share, especially any questions if you like to ask Sister Denise, or you want to put it on the chat.
Yeah, there's one person I can see.
Hi, Sister Denise. I want to know, when is the soul ready to listen?
I think when everything else has failed, and it's like a last resort, you know.
Oh.
So when it gets bad enough, then you'll say, okay, I give up. Help. You know?
Okay.
And so now, do you want to put yourself in that situation, or can you say, okay, it's bad enough now. I need to know what's going on. You know, because the difficulty is the ego.
Yes, because you always think you know better.
Yeah, that's it.
But you always get hit more and more.
That's right.
And, you know, on the one hand, you know what's good for you, but others don't seem to know that. And somewhere along the line, there's going to be a compromise. Because unless you surrender.
I think the biggest problem is people do not understand the spiritual teachings particularly well. They'll understand it quite superficially, and then they mix it up with what they already have in mind. And this mixture is very ineffective. And so the key thing is to really look at the spiritual knowledge and the way in which, that's what I was saying, the environment in which you do this, and the doctors, if this is a hospital, the doctors really need to be skilled and really know what they're doing. If the doctors don't know what they're doing and the patients think that they're fine and the doctors think that they're fine, then it means you really haven't understood. And so I think I'm waving a flag here to say, hey, you know, take a look at how you're doing this, because it can be done in a better, more effective way. And so then that means, okay, to be willing to set aside what you've been doing up until now and be willing to sort of reinvent yourself, reinvent this whole thing. We have the information, but we mix it up with other things. And so to look at it without all that mixture is very valuable. So I think that really focusing on the information, what is the information? What are we being told? Excuse me. Then, okay, we say, all right, yeah, I don't know this stuff. I need to sit down and listen. The difficulty is the ego says, you hear 2 or 3 words about it and you say, oh, yeah, I know the whole thing. And then you don't listen because of the ego. And the problem, why I say it has to get bad enough, is when all your ego gets smashed by circumstances and you say, okay, I give up. But do we want to, you know, can we not do it a little bit before it gets that bad? See what I mean?
Thank you.
Okay. There's a question, Varsha. How do we not mix up spiritual knowledge with all other things? And how do we go deeper to reach the soul?
Well, when you meditate, you have to meditate differently from the meditation commentaries, because meditation commentaries are very pleasant, but they're like, what shall I call it? A panacea. It's like, you know, it's soothing. And so soothing is very nice. It's a massage. It's always very nice to have a massage, but excuse me, it's not really going deep. And so when you meditate, okay, it's nice. I'm a peaceful soul and all this, very good, but go deep and just see, because you need to make contact with your pain. And this is why you need good people around, because it's very scary for a person to go in deep and make contact with their pain. Of course, everyone has to, but they don't want to because it's painful. And so this is the thing. So if you have good doctors, a good environment, non-judgmental environment, then you feel a little bit more willing to go in deep and make contact with your pain, because the only way out is through. You have to be able to go through it, and to be accompanied by good people and God makes it possible. But if you're in an environment of people who are judgmental and arrogant and all that, then, you know, you can go on for 1,000 years, you won't get anywhere. So the thing is, are you ready to do the real work? And when you say to yourself, okay, I'm ready, and then begin, then it may not be pleasant, but it's very good because you come out of it.
Thank you so much, Sister Denise. I know time we pressed for time. I would like you to please just give us a little experience of going deep and connecting. There's another
Yeah.
question. I don't know. There's another question. Should I?
Well, I tell you what, let us look at the question, because we already had a very beautiful meditation with Dipti at the beginning.
Okay.
And so let's look at the question and just finish with a moment of silence.
Okay. Om Shanti. Opening. Sorry, a moment. There's another question. I'm just getting the first one. Opening the heart to expose our vulnerability has a positive side, learning to our creativity and innovation. Sorry, that's just a comment. I started meditating in 1999 with Sister Samantha Fraser. I went to the meditation center 2 times per day. The meditation did wonders for me. I was in total bliss. Right now, I am meditating from home and the experience is different. Sorry. Is this maybe because our homes are polluted? Example, I meditate in the bedroom where people step in with their shoes and the cats come on.
No, it's nothing to do with it. That's normal. Life is life. When you begin meditation, you have a kind of honeymoon, you see, a taster. And this is what I call God's advertising, so you experience what it's like when you are really, truly a pure, peaceful, powerful, loveful, blissful soul. So you buy it. You say, yeah, this is what I want. This is how I want to feel. And then you associate that with meditation. Then as time goes by, when you meditate, it causes the polluted elements of the soul to come to the surface of your consciousness, because meditation is a way of loosening that deep embedded contamination. And so it comes up, and this is why it's difficult. Nothing to do with the cats and the people's shoes. That's just external. Meditation is an internal thing. And you need to develop strength, and the strength to be with yourself in any environment, And you cannot be dependent on the environment or a person who is showing you how to meditate, because that's not mastery. That's just piggyback. And so, yes, that's what happens at the beginning. But then, you need to really work with your meditation. And I think a lot of time the teachers don't really know so well how to guide people in this part of working through the areas that are not so easy, because they always say, well, this is easy Raj yoga, and if you're having difficulties, it means you're doing it wrong. That's all nonsense. It's not easy Raj yoga, it's Sahaj Raj yoga. That means yoga which is in the context of people, in the context of the iron-aged world, and you cannot expect there to be anything easy about it, but it's clear. You have information which makes this clear, but then you have to really look at the information and see what it says and work with it, because the information is the foundation of the meditation. The meditation enables you to get the power to handle all the obstacles and clear them slowly, slowly out of your being. So this
Sister
is not.
Denise, would like to, I'm so sorry to have to stop you and, finish off here
Mhm.
because someone else has to continue from here. But
Exactly.
really, according to your sharing and experiences that you shared so powerfully, we will definitely get you another time where you have a whole hour and a half, where where our participants can take maximum benefit as well. That can be arranged. We will do that. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Many blessings. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.